Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me? Yes. My name is Sienna Lewis. I joined the TTIA in 2023 because of this very event that we're at tonight. I looked up how to and how not to be an MC when I was asked to do this. And the first thing they said was, don't use the same words that every MC does. So I'm not supposed to tell you how excited I am to be here. Consider me enthused and delighted instead. So I'm gonna allow the House to play some housekeeping matters, some safety issues before I get into anything else.
Welcome to the Pamela Benson Audiovisual Room at the National Library of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a safety briefing. In the event of an emergency, or at the sound of the alarm, kindly remain calm and proceed in an orderly fashion to the exits. There are 3 exits. 2 are located at the back of the room, 1 on the right and 1 on the left. The 3rd exit is located at the front of the room, at your left. Take a moment to locate the exit closest to you. Once out of the room, kindly proceed up the stairs out of the building to our muster point as directed by authorized personnel. Please note, you are not allowed to re-enter the building unless given clearance to do so by security personnel. We wish to also inform you that eating, drinking, or the chewing of gum is strictly prohibited in this space. Please take a moment to put your mobile phones on silent. We thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Great. Up next, I'm going to try to avoid one small issue, that part of every ceremony where the MC goes, "How's everybody?" and 2 people respond. So we're going to do this multiple choice instead. A, you're going to respond with your letter, please. A means, "It's great to be here. I am so happy that I am here. Thank you for having me." B means, "It's only okay, but I had to show face." C means, "I cannot believe I'm here. They made me come." Ready? Okay. Remember to respond with your letter. How's everybody doing tonight? Yay. Insane. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So, during a time where it is the case that we see so many underutilized public spaces, it's such a delight to be here to celebrate one of our best public spaces designed by Colin Laird himself. It is also a pleasure to be here during a time where crime is such an issue and our young people are under strange times where there are so many under-engaged and forgotten young people. It's such a happy occasion to be here to celebrate those who are totally engaged, diligent, multifaceted, and so talented. So thank you for having me. First up, I'm going to welcome Martin Job to the stage to present. He was our TTIA president from 2020 to 2022.
The master of ceremonies promised us a joke, but I didn't get a joke. All right, Renata gave me 5 or 10 minutes, I can't remember. All right, during my presidency, president of the TTIA, between COVID year and COVID season, 20 to 22, the first year we couldn't get anything done. In the second year, we hosted a conference. There was we put a bid in to host the Commonwealth Association of Architects conference in Trinidad and Tobago, and we won the bid. So we then had to go to set up the host and all the hard work associated with it. But during that time, the then President Paula Mae Weeks, ORTT, every year on the anniversary of the coup, she would say something, write something, so the museum, the competition entries that we saw, the rotunda, came out from the ideas from the President Paula Mae Weeks at that time. So during her presidency, she made several statements during her tenure as the president of the country to memorialize the 1990 attempted coup. She was insistent. I don't know if everybody was aware of that, but she was insistent on it. So for example, in 2019, on the 29th anniversary of the attempted coup, she again had an article publicly displayed, and which included that the fact that despite the great lasting impact of the 6 days of terror, and this took me by surprise because I wasn't aware of this, all the names of those who had perished are not readily available. We only have 9 persons identified who were killed during the coup, of the 24 listed as killed as a result of the coup. There's Leo Devines, he was the MP for Diego Martin. SRP Solomon, I think he was the young man killed at the start of the event. ASP Roger George, Malcolm Basanta, George Francis, Arthur Giuseppe, Helen Levere, Lorraine Caballero, and Mervyn Teague. We only have 9 names recorded. The fact that some victims of the attempted coup remain nameless and faceless is testimony to our short memories and disregard for human life and dignity. By allowing victims of violence to go unrecognized by the nation, we chance diminishing the weight of the impact of the attempted coup on society and risk becoming immune to brutality in all its forms. Every citizen should be concerned that for such a significant event, there is no official commemoration, nor is there an official list of all the casualties. Again, in the preceding year, in 2018, President Weeks commented, the Spanish-American philosopher George Santayana once said, and we all know the phrase, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. If we are to learn from our history, we must preserve and transmit it in a form that is meaningful and memorable. She called for the proper and fitting annual national observance to commemorate the attempted coup. And today, meaning that date in 2018, I renewed the appeal. She continued, while wreath laying and paying tribute to the dead, this dark chapter of our history merits a permanent memorial. And that is the only thing I could find historically of a first call for a permanent memorial. That would capture the horror and the chaos of the 6 days with appropriate images, testimonials, and historical information. Such a museum-quality display would reliably impart to present and future generations the events, causes, and consequences of the attempted coup. The commemoration would also help to avoid the romanticization of those events and paint them for what they were, which is an unjustified and heinous grab for power which robbed the innocent of their lives, their rights, their peace, and their livelihood. Her last recorded call was in 2022, and that was the same year we had the CAA conference. And I had gone out of my way to invite her to give the opening remarks at the conference, and found out that just weeks before the conference, she also made another speech related to the need for the museum. And that went as follows. Of course, because of the loss of life, limb, and livelihood occasioned by the circumstances surrounding the attempted coup, but also because I feel that our country has never achieved or even seriously tackled the issue of closure on this horrendous and dismal chapter of our national life, commission of inquiry notwithstanding. So not even the commission really helped to solve the problem, in her opinion. And she reiterated again, as we lay wreaths, attend church services and occasional memorial events, watch television recaps and interviews, as we did last year, that was the year before, there was still a national day during the National Day of Prayer, but there needs to be an official and permanent commemoration of the attempted coup. So of course, the real reason behind it is to ensure the present and future generations know and understand the causes and consequences of the Jamaat's ill-fated grab for power. And I learned something in doing this little research, that the coup was actually the only Islamist attempted coup in the Western Hemisphere. There's an entire generation of people who were not yet born or too young to remember, to acknowledge the ordeal and experiences of those who suffered, died, or were otherwise affected, to honor the frontline workers who risked their lives to contain the insurrection and put an end to the violence, and to ensure that we will never again take for granted our hard-earned democracy. So this particular statement was made a couple of weeks before the TTIA was hosting a conference, and I had gone out of my way to invite her, so I thought it's only fitting that we have a little design competition among the architects. So at least if there are no other groups in the society who made that first step, the architects could at least start having a discussion as to how to memorialize the coup. So we took up that channel, and we had a little competition. It turned out to be not so much of a competition anymore, but it's really to start a discussion towards that part of our healing. And the senior people in the audience would know and would remember some of the challenges that took place during the coup. The other aspect of it is that she was alluding to the fact that, I don't know if there's any research done in it, but that coup sort of sows seeds of the kind of violence that is now taking place in the society, where it was not reconciled or discussed sufficiently or dealt with, because the underlying problems might still be there. So, sorry to dampen the evening, but 6 architects, individuals and groups made submissions. We had it on display during the event. We also had an assessment done some time ago, and I'm happy that the present executive has decided to bring it back up, put the exhibition on display so that all can see. It's not about winners and losers. It's about thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and the start of the discussion towards memorializing it. And there's one thing the president had said during that time that I really like, is that we should not romanticize that event, because people could still have it as, yeah, we did that, a thief a fridge, a thief a stove, and I get away. Because that can happen, and you feel empowered by doing wrong. So special thanks to our sponsor, Fides Limited, as well as the Central Bank for assisting with the display. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. No prepared speech for that one. For some time now, we've had in the world of architecture, we have a little challenge. The only school of architecture closest to us is the Caribbean School of Architect, located in Jamaica. It's a school established a little while ago. But we've got sponsorship and financing for the undergraduate programs from year 1 to year 4. It's a 6-year study, so you do 4 for a bachelor's and 2 for a master's. And what you're seeing there is an innovative process that we're going to try this year. For the first time, we're going to have a distance learning component with the Jamaica School of Architecture. So students don't necessarily have to fly up there. They still have to go from time to time, but you don't have to go up there and live and struggle and all the fun things of studying abroad. This is innovative. We have 7 people registered to start. Renata, I don't know if they've been accepted as yet. They still have to go through their process of acceptance. But we are going to start this September for the Masters MA1 class. We're all kind of looking forward to it. The TTIA has a big stake in it in terms of supporting the students. And we're going to play a part in terms of that education. Now, the architects in here and other professionals would know that when you have a respective institute in your country, it helps to build that profession a lot. Because it's your strong lawyers, because we have plenty of lawyers, and there's a school behind it. There's a kind of synergy in terms of learning and experience that helps build the particular discipline. So we're kind of looking forward to see how we could build that and strengthen our own institute here. So these 4, anybody, any of the names of any person here? I'm not sure if they made it. No? So Renata just asked me to share that, and we're looking forward to all the support that we have from the senior architects, the middle of the road architects, and the young ones as well, to help in the coaching and encouraging and mentoring these students. We plan to use some of the facilities at the Institute, and I kind of expect our practice could assist in some way. Gary. Sorry, did I call a name? It just came out. And Colin, if you think, not Colvin, I know you think you're retired, but you have some work to do. So yeah, we're trying something for the first time this year, and look forward to everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is such an exciting prospect, and I really hope you consider admitting everyone now that their names have been up on the screen. So I'd like to send out some acknowledgements. Our most sincere thanks to our committee for the grant this year, beginning with our president, Renata Alam, our partners, Sherwin-Williams, ENCO, IPI, and the family of Colin Laird. Representing the family this year, Sebastian Paddington, Kaz Laird, our tech support by Ricardo Nualo, and yours truly as a trainee on the committee. We also want to thank the TTIA administrator, Leah Polo Kennedy, and volunteers, David McCann, Rihanna Bain, Craig Daniel, Randir Sundar Singh, our TTIA members who are this year for the first time joined by a new category, which is very exciting, affiliate members who will be made up of our landscape architects and interior designers. I think that will be a fantastic addition. And lastly, I am almost finished. To our TTIA executive, our president, Renata Alam, vice president, Ricardo Nualo, secretary, Kenrick Baksh, treasurer, Adrian Gittens, immediate past president, Akindele Lubi, and executive officers, Michelle Lioto and Sheila Murray. Now, to our judges for the grant this year, they have all sent remarks about the students this year who really submitted such fantastic quality work. And the entire panel of judges was really so passionate, so dedicated, and put so much thought into the decisions this year. And we want to thank them. Mandalee Newton sent her statement saying, "The caliber of the submissions were notable and reinforces the importance of this grant towards the development of our future generation of architects." True. Linda Moore says, "Thanks to the TTIA and the Colin Laird family for the opportunity to assess the grant this year, an enjoyable experience which was close to my heart." And Kaz Laird said, and parents pay attention to this part, "For the third year in a row, I've been impressed by the quality of applicants' portfolios and statements. It's also encouraging to see improvement in those who have applied previously, and I expect even more individuals to follow that trend should they put their name forward again." They said more than I could. Caribbean Architecture Design. The Barbados Institute of Architects produces a magazine on Caribbean architecture. This is the 3rd edition, and it's focused on educational projects, including the image on the cover, which shows Maria Holden Nursery School Government Hill in Barbados, a project designed by Linda Moore, who was one of our judges. She is the architect. Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business is also highlighted. So we encourage you to take one of these magazines on your way out, please. So next we have what should be a very fascinating piece. One of our past grant recipients, Nico Brewster, interviewed Dr. Vanel Noel. Now, this biography has many, many big words. If I make any mistakes, just blink twice, pretend it didn't happen, which is what I will be doing also. Vanel A. Noel, PhD, is an assistant professor of computational design and director of the Situated Computation and Design Lab at Carnegie Mellon University. Dr. Noel is a computational design scholar, architect, and educator, conducting research at the intersection of embodied practices, emerging technology, and society. Dr. Noel investigates craft and making practices, heritage, and new technologies, and develops new frameworks, methods, and expressions in design research, practice, and education. Her work has been supported by the Graham Foundation for Advanced Studies in the Fine Arts, the Mozilla Foundation, the Ideas to Innovation, among others. She is a recipient of the Digital Futures Young Award for exceptional research and scholarship in the field of critical computational design. She has a TEDx talk titled "The Power of Making: Craft, Computation, and Carnival." Dr. Noel has held positions at the Georgia Institute of Technology, the University of Stuttgart, the University of Florida, Penn State University, MIT, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, and has practiced as an architect in the US, India, and Trinidad and Tobago. She's interviewed by our own Nico Brewster in the following video.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nico Brewster. I'm delighted to be here speaking to Dr. Vernell Noel here about Colin Laird and to have the opportunity to ask her a few questions and allow her to speak on her work and her perspectives. So to begin, I'm really very interested in your time with Colin, and I think it must have been so enlightening to have been blessed with his presence almost. Of the many things you must have learned from Colin, what would you say has stuck with you most throughout the years?
Thank you very much, and so lovely to meet you, Nico. I always think about Mr. Laird in one way or the other, but I made just 4 notes or 3 notes for our conversation. 3 things that sticks out for me, Colin, and what he passed on to me, I would say, are his love of reading, surrounded by books, and going to work with him was really being in a library. So I learned about reading architecture by working with Mr. Laird. He read a lot. His love of writing, his reports, his technical reports, sketch design reports for all his projects are absolutely poetry. And number 3, his absolute love of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and our culture. In every way, he attempted to show that love and amplify that love through his architecture, his approach to architecture, his belief in regionalism when it came to reinterpreting our vernacular. So his absolute love of our culture and his just love of architecture.
More on a more personal level, what was kind of most notable about his personality, and kind of what was the atmosphere or environment in his office like?
So I think of us as a cohort. Let me say my cohort. When I worked so I met Mr. Laird in 1996. I was doing civil engineering at John D, and I had a class project which I actually dug up. And I chose to do it on the Brian Lara Promenade. I think my aunt who actually dropped me by Mr. Laird the first time. I was doing research for my project, and I think eventually after the project was done, I just started going there. My classes were in the evenings, and so I would go there and stay there all day and then head down to John D and Ryson Road to take my evening classes. So that was formative. It's where I learned. It was my first architectural office, and I would just go in, Mr. Laird would say, oh, do what you want. I would take materials, pretend to make models. And so my cohort, or who was there when I was there, was Darren Rahman, who was amazing at making models. I learned model making from him. Gabriela Vidal, John Ferraz, Felix Fista, and Patricia Lamming was his secretary at that time. So that was our cohort. And Mr. Laird always playing music. I just had these amazing mentors around me where I learned site work, I learned drawing, I learned model making, I would read, I would do whatever I wanted in there. And one of the things that stood out for me was one time, I would just go there because I wanted to. I want to learn architecture. I want to be like Mr. Laird, right? He's the first architect I really knew. I want to be like everybody in the office. And one day as I was leaving to go home, Ms. Lamming hands me an envelope. I'm like, what is this about? And she says, Mr. Laird says that every time you come in here, he will pay you for your time in here. I was like, what? That's not what I was coming here for. But that moment, I was so appreciative of it. And it stood out to me the valuing of people's labor, people's time, and their contributions. And that really made an impact in terms of valuing people's contributions and labor. I was just going there because I wanted to, but he saw value enough in whether it be my presence, my coming, such that he gave an offering for that. So that always stood out to me, his generosity.
Yes, that sounds like such a special moment almost. That of your love for architecture. The way he facilitated that is very special. I guess continues to do so even through this grant. It's really special. Moving on, I guess, more to a more academic question. For someone kind of unfamiliar with the field, what are the key things one should know about computational design? What is your unique take on the field as a practitioner, an active practitioner? And what does the lab that you're running at Carnegie Mellon hope to offer to the field?
So the field of computational design is relatively new. Started, I would say, in the 70s, although it's been around before, but it's a field in many other it's in mechanical engineering also, but in the context of architecture, we ask questions about computation, technology, and design. And that could be design practice, that could be design pedagogy or teaching and education, and research. And the field draws on computer science principles, so computing, right? So that's the field more or less, how we think about these system ways of engaging with the world, tools that are grounded in systems and logics. How do we think with those things for design? My particular area or research, I examine within the field, I examine craft and making practices. So my work is very hands-on. So I conduct ethnographic work, field work, studying craft practices, making practices, and that could be high tech or low tech. I examine heritage practices and new technologies, and from those things develop critical frames, critical ways that we ought to frame, examine, conduct research in our field, such that it asks questions of society, it asks questions of history, it asks questions of culture, it asks questions of politics. Since our field, still young, like I mentioned, and the field of computer science has the frame, the position of sometimes removing what they consider messy, so eliminating the human things. And in my work, I'm bringing in the human things so that we grapple with those things as we consider technology, how we teach it, what it is, its impact in our lives. Big thing, that's what I do. And I examine these things through making practices.
Would you like to share a few images potentially?
So in my work, like I mentioned, through making practices, I ask questions of technology and our embodied, situated, cultural, heritage, political, etc. knowledges. An example would be my research into wire bending in Trinidad and Tobago. I started this in 2013. So looking at ways that we could address our dying practice of wire bending, which I spoke a bit of in the TED Talk. But this is an example of attempting to make tacit dying knowledge visible or explicit through computational ways of thinking. Notice these are just drawings, sort of symbols, equations. From that, I developed a grammar to describe wire bending in the Trinidad Carnival, which I named after Albert Bailey and Stephen Derrick because I studied them for the work. Came back home to explore, does this tool that I developed work at all? Conducted some experiments with students and teachers. Here are images of students and teachers. I had them make artifacts without the grammar. Then I had them make artifacts, so design and make artifacts, and then communicate how they made those things before and after teaching them the grammar. After, there was an improved craftsmanship because there was now agreed standards of communication, facilitated replication, etc. But one of the most important things is that it facilitated or reintroduced our value or the values around making and carnival, around community and collaboration. Yes, the tool is an intervention, but it's what it facilitates, and it facilitated a collaborative approach to the craft that doesn't exist. I also developed computational or technological ways of engaging in the craft. I build structures as I explore certain tectonics for how we might rethink wire bending with different ways of making and designing through pavilions and structures. I develop frameworks for how we engage in research, how we engage in practice. So in this framework, I'm talking about how we think about technology or computational design when it comes to sites of particular histories, making practices, materials, etc. So these are some frameworks that I developed as an academic. It's what I do, I write. Situated computations, another framework around how we engage in research. And this framework came out of my many years examining wire bending, how we practice, and how we might engage in it technologically. I've done exhibitions, made artifacts for it. This is a Graham Foundation exhibition that I had in 2022 around design and making in the Trinidad Carnival. Here are some artifacts that I built and sculptures for the exhibition. I examined questions of AI and machine learning in our design practices, how we might engage in digital heritage for sustainability, as this has been a call since the 1980s around preserving our heritage, because that's what I do as an academic, with contributions. And if anyone wants to see the exhibit that I showed before, they can go to this website, read more about it, and actually have a virtual tour of the exhibition. So that's what I do. Thank you.
Really, really incredible work. A fascinating sort of codification of our existing culture, I suppose, and one that I'm sure Colin would have loved, given he was known to be an avid fan of the carnival. So you spoke a bit about AI and how you were playing with kind of new technologies and within that, those exhibitions. I kind of have a broader question about the role of AI. So kind of with the advent of new technologies and kind of growing political and environmental pressures globally, how do you see the role of the architect changing? For instance, how might AI start to affect that?
It's already affecting it. And I think of it through the lens of an educator and knowing within my field of research how people are exploring it. The role of the architect has gone through several changes. My position is that more so now than before, and I could speak to the context of the US, right, where technology is the hammer for every nail, that there is a shift in some schools, not every school, thank goodness, where there is a focus on the technological at the expense of architects being trained in history, theory, hands-on sort of knowledges, understanding culture, understanding site. And so the more these, and students are excited about AI and machine learning, of course, as we all have been with new tools and technologies. But I think what's at risk is architects giving up their agency to these tools, which has repercussions for, I think, agency on the whole, and passing off of certain knowledges to others, which means doing less historical studies, less cultural studies, less studies on site, less understanding about political, such that it harms people, it harms our profession, and it has the possibility of making architects who are cogs on a wheel that will never end, rather than those who read about the political, read about the historical, read about the cultural through the built environment. So rather than reading things through the technological, our profession, what we do is literally read those things and create those things through the built environment. So the more we have to spend our time to understand these tools and learn about these tools, it means the less that we are doing the work of understanding those things that ground the things that we need. So that's my thinking on AI and machine learning. It depends contextually where we are. Like I said, not every culture privileges technology. Let's say the US does. Other cultures privileges community, privileges history, privileges indigenous knowledges. But I think we should guard our local knowledges, our indigenous knowledges, our vernaculars, and think of AI as a local tool that can be used to explore and uncover how we think about things, but not as something that replaces how we think, because that direction of letting technology do the work for us, I think, as we're already seeing, is a dangerous path.
For sure. Thank you for such a well thought out answer. I mean, really beautiful stuff there, and stuff that I also truly believe about architecture, needing to bridge different worlds and seeing technological and the humanistic through the lens of the architecture, not the other way around. And that's a very powerful message already. But are there any other messages that you would like to leave with the audience and the recipients today?
I think one, I was thinking of Mr. Laird's love of architecture. He loved architecture, and his love of it, all of us in the office, made me like, I'm in love with architecture. I have a serious relationship. So that's one. Two, seeing what we do as understanding, reading, and creating through the built environment. The things we build to read is the built environment. It's not technology, it's the built environment. The things that we create, are the ways that we understand ourselves and understand the context within which we work. Generosity, very much so. Mr. Laird was a generous man. So being generous with our time, our skills, and mentoring each other. To all the recipients, feel free to reach out to me. Mr. Laird was a great mentor, and I hope to do that for others too. Well, no, I already do it, but I hope to continue doing it, especially for scholarship recipients. So mentor others, and be willing to be mentored. And I don't know, this might go too long, but I dug this up from one of Mr. Laird's proposals that I have here. I just wanted to read it, but it was in his proposal for the Natural Library. In rereading it, I realized, man, this is where my positionality comes from. He says, this proposal theorizes over the heavy responsibilities to our collective quest for a true expression of our young Trinidad and Tobago culture within our Caribbean society. If we are to throw off the architectural eclecticism of imported ideas that stay on the circumference and never reach the center, if we are not to lose our pride in the presumptuous architectural trappings of a foreign initiative, if we have any aspirations toward our own architectural vernacular, then it is doubly essential that this early research shall be all the more exhaustive and informed. While there is no need to reinvent the wheel every time we are faced with creativity, we must at least go back to first principles in order to stringently test the relevance of every facet of this initial grounding to our position, at this time, in this place. This proposal is the beginning of the long and disciplined search that will sift and eradicate the dross of subjective preconceptions and leave the flair and innovation to fly free with the power and strength of objective scholarship and gentle empathy. To do less or race ahead in uninformed fantasy, let's say AI, would not only be premature, but dishonest. And that there is the man, Mr. Laird.
Beautiful. That's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Noah. It's been a real pleasure getting this opportunity to speak to you.
You are most welcome.
And his generosity continues. Thank you, Dr. Noel. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Mr. Colin Laird. Next, I'd like to introduce one of our most recent recipients, not from this year, but from last year, 2024. A very sweet and interesting person to talk to, whose work reflects her diligence and a very high level of understanding, especially at this stage, Alexia Williams. She studies at the University of Technology, Jamaica, and is in her third year pursuing her Bachelor's of Arts Architecture.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Alexia Williams, and this is the eatery. So the eatery is located in the city of Nassau on the island of New Providence in the Bahamas. Downtown Nassau was the location of my Year 3 study tour earlier in February. And on this study tour, we identified two problems. Downtown Nassau sees about 4 million to 6 million tourists per year. But majority of its visitors don't stay. It's a transient town. This means that, as I said before, they don't stay. Another problem we had identified was the lack of locals in the area. The downtown area of Nassau was always a contested area throughout history. So to this point that the locals didn't see it as a place for them anymore, so they don't stay. And when these locals left, they took everything with them over the hill in the Bahamas. Okay, that's fine. So when the locals, can you go back? Yeah, right. Sorry about that. So when the locals left, they took one important thing with them, which was their market. After we returned from our study tour, we sat to discuss what we would focus on this semester. And the words of an architect we had met on the tour rang deep with us. And these words were, "The market is the hub of the people, and without the market, the city has no people." This influenced our project and influenced the eatery. So the concept of the eatery is a space for both locals and tourists, hence the concept liminality. So liminality is described as the transitional and the in-between rites of passage where participants neither in their previous state or not yet attained their future one, they're characterized by ambiguity and uncertainty. It is that in-between transitional space. So the eatery becomes the in-between space with a market, a food court, and a hub, where locals can sell their goods and have a place in downtown, and visitors can enjoy the cuisine and the culture of downtown Nassau. Yeah. So the eatery is located on a coastal site. Actually, can I go back? Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, guys. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So the eatery is located on a coastal site and is bordered by the sea, a major road, and a minor road. And on the site exists a 3-story building. There's an image here of the 3-story building on the site. And here we have the site plan of the site. You can move on now. So the proposed design consists of the back services, an eating area. So the proposed design consists of the back services, an eating area, the market, a retail space, and the circulation space here. So the market has multiple entry points. And the market is split into 3 sectors: fish, spice, and produce. The public areas are towards the ocean, as well as in between the market space and the eating space. The back facilities are on the southeast side of the market. This is because we're trying to make this road, the minor road, into a service area, as well as support the dock. So the dock brings in fish into the market, and the fish comes in, as well as the produce from the road. They come into this area where it can be separated into cold storage and dry storage before it's brought into the market itself. So as I said, here we have the market space, our facilities, the retail space, and the eating space. Give me over. So the eating space, actually let's talk about the market. So focusing on the market now, above the market sits a polycarbonate roof. So the roof is made to mimic the waves of the ocean and the impact that the ocean has onto the site. So the roof is made especially as well to bring in sunlight, to bring in ventilation, as well as to catch rainwater that can be brought into the market and facilitate for the stalls inside the market. Here we have some of the stalls consisting of the produce stall, the spice stall, and the fish stall. And here having an exact view of what exactly the market would look like. Can continue. And lastly, we have the hub. So the hub being that space in between, further emphasizing the concept of liminality. So each space leading straight into this hub area, with the eating space being able to look over into it, and the market space having those open concepts to be able to flow straight into the hub. So having that kind of flow in between the liminality, the concept that we were going for. And here having this exact view of what it would look like. So all these spaces work together, the market, the food court, the hub, and the facilities all work together to create the eatery, the space in between. Thank you.
Okay, can we give another round of applause for Alexia, please? We all know that studying architecture takes grit. It takes a lot of being able to bounce back from good and bad presentations. This was a great one. That was not me saying otherwise at all. So much props to you for continuing with confidence despite the AV difficulties and for being able to go through it. We really enjoyed. Thank you so much. So next, we have another student. We have Shail Chung, recipient also in 2024. She studies at the University of Kent in the UK and is and just completed her second year pursuing her Bachelor of Arts in Architecture.
Yeah, thank you. So I will be presenting my project titled The River's Edge. And to overview, this project proposes the design of a cookery school, a restaurant, and its associated landscape. And the general idea is that it's meant to encourage a connection to nature and using that connection to nature to support mental well-being. Just exploring that dynamic relationship between architecture and landscape. And so the site is located along a major river running through Canterbury, Kent in the UK. And that was the main takeaway from the site because throughout the site there is all these different areas that has these different water types. And a lot of my inspiration for this design came from observing the way that water moves in and around the site, whether it's this crashing waterfall or a gently flowing stream. I wanted to take that water and kind of relate it into the site. And so in response to the sounds of the river running through and around the site, I established this core concept of using water as an experiential guide. And that would be through visual, sound, movement, touch. And I started playing around with, a collage and watercolors and just experimenting in different ways to kind of visualize the direction I wanted to take the project in. So this here is my landscape proposal, and the landscape contains all these different experiential gardens as well as the restaurant and cooking school on the peninsula. The main takeaway from this, I wanted to kind of connect the restaurant, all the gardens around that water and give it that experiential pathways for users. And so, for example, one of the gardens on the landscape is located here, and it's a floating garden. So there's many different bridges with that you can cross and see and hear water flowing beneath you. Another example is like a play area with a waterfall and you can dip your feet, etc. And so there's all these different areas of different levels along the river that you can basically sit in and enjoy. And then again on the peninsula, there's terrace kitchen gardens and earthship greenhouses off of the restaurant to facilitate the restaurant and encourage food cultivation. So, you grow your food and it's straight into the restaurant. And this is my building design. So when thinking about the building, I really wanted it to respond to the land. And so here in this section, you can kind of see that it carves into the land before lowering down to the river's edge. And with the layouts of spaces, I basically divided this into 3 different zones. So this is the entrance foyer, which is a double height space with the kitchens down below. That's the first zone. And then there is a stairwell atrium with all the other services. And finally, the third zone, which has the dining areas and then an outdoor pavilion. And so with the design and flow of spaces in the restaurant, I utilized the directionality of the natural river flowing, which would be west to east. And I used that and translated it into the plans of the restaurant where water is flowing throughout the entirety of the restaurant. So for example, as you on the approach to the restaurant here, there is, on the approach to the restaurant here, you follow the flow of the natural river, and as you enter into the space, it transitions into an artificial waterfall crashing down below. And so there's a different water experience in each type of space. And I let the water mimic the type of environment it flows through. So for the kitchens, there is this crashing waterfall that mimics the high energy of the kitchens. And then it flows by a little stream, transitions into the stairwell where it pauses for a bit as that transition space, and finally continues to flow and pauses again, and pools and settles in the outdoor pavilion. And that just reflects the calming environment of the restaurant where you sit and eat, and it's just meant to be this relaxing space. So the water is kind of the positive space, and the functions operating around it, I made it out to be the negative space. So there's that entire water experience that follows the flow, and it kind of immerses you in the space as an extension of nature. And so here you can see that pooling in the main dining area. And then the waterfall bit in the kitchens. And finally, I wanted to look at the materiality. So I wanted to tie in the materiality as an extension of nature. And so the building is this rammed earth and timber form with sort of a delicate glue lamp framed roof. And that was just meant to be almost as an extension of nature. And so the roof also facilitates rainwater catchment via rain chains, and that grey water can be used as a water source throughout the entirety of the restaurant. And here I just have some images of some models, wood and card, and I basically just used the models to help visualize the space and create the atmosphere that I was trying to achieve. But yeah, so the design of the restaurant and the landscape, it really expanded on the site's potential to interact with that river and create different spaces that people can come to, sit, relax, enjoy themselves, run around, play different activities, different things for different demographics, and just be a space that supports your mental well-being. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, I entered that project. What an experience. Okay, next up, the main event of this evening, the presentation of the awards to this year's recipients. This year we'll have Sebastian Paddington and Mr. Colvin Chen presenting to the parents of our two students. So neither of our recipients is here in person today, unfortunately. They are away studying hard. But could the parents of Anil Pugh join us on stage? You can come on this side. Yeah. Let's see. We have Asha Permalant, mother of mother of Anil Pugh, Anil studies at the Pratt Institute School of Architecture in NYC. He's in his 4th year seeking his Bachelor of Architecture, and his work is so impressive. Congratulations. Now, if the parents of Corinne Peters would join us. You can join me up here on this side. Thank you. And we have Gary Peters, father of Corinne Peters, to accept the award on her behalf. Congratulations. Corinne is in London at the London School of Architecture in the UK. She is in her Masters of Architecture, year 1. Her work is also very impressive. Anil's article submitted for the application for the grant was published in the Newsday recently. His article was titled, "Why is the Role of the Architect Important in Society?" Corinne Peters' article on what do you see as the role of the architect in light of the increases in artificial intelligence and global connectivity will be published at a later date in the Newsday as well. Very exciting. I know we are all curious as to the impact this will have on our field. So next, I'd like to ask Sebastian Paddington, Ricardo Nualo, Colvin Chen, and Renata Allam to the stage to present a gift of thank you to Miss Debbie Goodman, Manager of Corporate Communications at NALIS. As well as Akin Luby. On behalf of the TTIA, these people are awarding or gifting 5 architecture books to our National Library. Thank you so much for hosting us in your fantastic public space. And for my final intro of the evening, it's been such a pleasure to host you. Thank you for having me. A president's address by our very own fantastic, the unfillable shoes, Renata Allam.
Good evening. All right. So I don't usually give speeches, but from next year, The committee for the grant will be handed over to the recipients. So I decided to tell a story from a long, long time ago when I was a student. Hopefully you think it's relevant. So in July of 2025, during my architectural studies at Howard University, 2005, I was privileged to attend an international design charrette, which is an intense design competition at the University of Lille in northern France. So that's the French name there, École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture et de Paysage. So that's a university. That's a university that has architecture and landscape architecture together. So that's just a reference to our new affiliate membership category. So at the time, the European Union was still being incorporated. And the theme of the design competition was Borders Without Order. So it was a concept of an open, fluid, unified group. No more borders, no more strict rules or regulations within this new EU. For some, that was a terrifying notion culturally. So that was why, they wanted to have the competition to generate ideas and talk about it, right? Like what Martin was describing for the exhibit we have upstairs. So traveling between the US and Europe is exhausting. We, 4 students and 2 professors, arrived at the university, and we were assigned to our separate living quarters. I was paired with Tanya from Brooklyn, New York City. We were staying at a youth hostel within walking distance of the School of Architecture and Landscaping. So on the second evening, after another long day, we were randomly moved to a smaller room, a room without windows, right? So we were too tired to complain, and it was dark. We had a lot of work to do, so we just passed out, not realizing the implications, right? So the next morning, when we somehow woke up without the sunlight from a window, we realized that we were late, and we had missed the start of our day, right? So that was going to be a full day of activities, and we were meant to take a bus with all the other students to go out on a field trip. We didn't have any cell phone. Nobody had known that we had been moved. So the French university had prepared a thorough, detailed itinerary of activities for us. Everything was very rigid, very scheduled, on time. So we couldn't miss a day. It was pretty crucial. So this was Tanya's first overseas trip. At least I was an international student, so I was more familiar. She naturally was distraught, like, what are we going to do? I guess maybe because I'm a trainee, I was like, well, let's just go shopping, But she wouldn't have that. So yes, this is the hostel. So, okay, what do? Tanya didn't speak any French. I did. So I took up the challenge of getting us there within the time frame. And as luck would have it, that morning, we were supposed to do the visit to the actual site for the project, which was at the border between France and Belgium. That was basically open countryside, fields, extremely remote area. So, of course, we said, okay, let's go to the School of Architecture, the admin office. Obviously, they'll help us. We had a package of documents, official university documents in French, with the university's logo and all of that. So they knew we were legitimate. We explained what had happened, and they just, scoffed at us. Oh. So, and they said, okay, the subway is over there, right? Luckily, the subway was within the university campus, right? So we get to the subway. We find a friendly officer, and he takes us to the map, and he shows us, where we have to go, the distances we have to cover, the various legs, you take this to here, that to there. So at the end, we had to go to the end of the subway line and then take a bus to get into the village countryside zone. And then after that, he was like, there's no way to get there after that, but you can go ahead and try, right? Tanya, being from New York, was like, well, obviously there's going to be a taxi there, I mean, come on, there are like taxis everywhere, right? So we get there to the bus, we make it, we're making good time. And the bus driver explains to us, luckily he was an immigrant bus driver, right? So he explains to us that he also has a rigid schedule that he has to stick to. So he can't just leave. And usually you're not allowed to wait on the bus, right? You can only get on when it's time to go. But he let us on, so we're in the bus, we lime in with him. And of course we showed him all the documents, because as Martin was saying, when you have a university there to support the discipline, it makes a huge difference, right? So Tonya again was like, so when you take us, wherever you're taking us, we'll get a taxi, right? And he was like, no, you don't understand, And she just wasn't having it. She's like, I came all the way here from America, from Brooklyn. This isn't gonna happen, right? So we were liming, and then all of a sudden, he's like, you know what? Today, I'm gonna be your taxi. And he just pulled off, because now he had to drop us and come back before his scheduled time. So we had to marsh gas. So we head off, and we're driving along, whizzing through the beautiful French countryside, through small villages. And then all of a sudden, he pulls up at the fourth stop, which looks like a small police station on the outskirts of the village, right? So an elderly French officer comes towards the bus, and the bus driver starts to beg on our behalf. He uses the magic words. These are architecture students, very important, Americans from New York City. They are here as guests of the University of Lille for an international design competition, right? And this is an emergency situation. The officer, an elderly officer, immediately jumps into action. We are instructed to get inside the back seat of a tiny police car, right? Then he turns on the sirens. So he's now driving us through the bushes on a dirt road, only stopping briefly to explain to the other officers who are hiding in the bushes that this is an emergency, right? We have no idea what's going on. After a short distance, we come out into a clearing in the field, and then we see the miracle that is the bus with all the other university students that we had met the evening before. The bus was just about to leave to head off to go to the border. So naturally, our professors were rather alarmed to see us coming out of a French border control vehicle. But they were happy that we were okay and we were back with the group. So this is us reunited, right? That's everybody there. And we eventually got to, later on in the day, there was this kind of, it was an old industrial equipment, but they changed it into sort of like the ski lift, and you could go on there and see the extent of the borders. Because borders are really man-made things, right? Just lines on maps. But it's really all nature. So why am I telling you this story? Because it's entertaining, because I need to practice my public speaking skills, maybe because Professor Harry Robinson at Howard University once asked me to speak about this, or because maybe there's a moral that ties into this evening. So the moral of the story is, where there is a will, there is a way. Together we aspire, together we achieve. If everyone does their small part, great things can happen. So on our journey, none of these people really needed to help us, but they did, because everyone needs help at some point in their lives. Antonio was very passionate about us getting there and getting there on time. I spoke French, but she spoke New York City, which is, if you meet anybody from New York City, it's the language of possibilities. You can make anything happen. So on life's journey, you don't always have all the answers. That's part of the adventure. So you create a vision, you maintain your drive towards that vision, you stay focused on your goals. And hopefully one day, design charrettes, design competitions, and architecture can become motivating factors, even here in Trinidad. And then most importantly, an occupiable space is a space that has daylight and views. So here we are. So in 2018, I attended the launch of the book, Forged from the Love, Colin Laird, Caribbean architect. And at that launch, Sebastian Parrington announced that a scholarship would be forthcoming. In 2023, we started the grant program of 10,000 TT dollars for 3 students. There was lots of discussion about what to name it, right? But Sebastian has always called it a scholarship. And he continues to call it a scholarship. And I think maybe like Tanya, he focuses on the possibilities that the grant is one day going to grow and become a scholarship. But we have to think about it like that. So we have quickly come to realize that the grant, while seemingly small to some, has had a big effect. The students and their families are extremely grateful to have a community that supports them. And further to that, you might be surprised, but sometimes even highly creative people can doubt themselves. The grant seems to support the students in much more than a financial way. So as we work to improve this scholarship program, I want to do some acknowledgements. So we want to acknowledge the fact that there are TTIA member firms who do anonymously give scholarships to their employees, and they know themselves. We want to thank all our sponsors who make this possible. So Sherwin-Williams Company, Coup, which is an engineering services company, IPI, and the Laird family. We also, of course, want to thank our sponsors for the exhibit, Fides Limited and the Central Bank. We're always looking for new sponsors. So this is an extended ending of the story. So when I returned to Howard University, I was telling my friends about it. They were all asking about the trip. And we were in the studio, of course. Where else would we be? Our professor, Harry Robinson, happened to be walking by, and he stopped in to check on us, his beloved students, as he often did. And he said, Renata, in the US, I'm Renata. Renata, that's an amazing story. You need to publish that in the Hilltop, which is Howard University's newspaper. That didn't happen. I was in my final year, so there wasn't time for that. And so I've never really spoken about the story or the entire summer trip. Professor Harry G. Robinson III passed away peacefully on June 13th, 2025, surrounded by his family. He was 83 years old. This is a list of his many achievements. While I'm speaking, I see everyone's reading. That's the intention. So he was a husband and a father of 3 daughters. When I knew him, he always wore a bow tie and suspenders, and he always had an architect's glasses. I was also recently reminded that he was an honorary TTIA member. Professor Robinson used to tell us stories about all his experiences. They were so varied and extensive that to me it almost seemed unreal. But even if you didn't know about his many accolades, you could tell by the way people just said his name with great respect and admiration. So if I might say that, like Colin, he was many things to different people, always a mentor to his students, some of whom are today now TTIA members and registered architects. So we're grateful for the legacy left by these generous architects, which we hope to pass on through all our projects, and especially through our scholarship program. So, yes, so that's it for me. I hope you found this pertinent. And we've come to the end of our award ceremony.
I'm back. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thanks so much for your attention, for your participation, especially in my multiple choice. Please enjoy your evenings. Thanks so much.
Fill my heart with song.